Hello, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to a Local 100 Fightback Coalition Facebook and YouTube live stream event. My name is John Peretti. I'm one of the co-founders of the Local 100 Fightback Coalition. Seth Rosenberg is one of the other co-founders of the coalition. We have coalition members Anthony Steininger, B Division train operator, Ray Regatas, A Division train operator, and Tom Grudemeyer, B Division train operator. We, as you know from the announcement, this is a Facebook and YouTube live stream about a major and important election in New York City for the mayor of New York City. Right now, the two candidates who really have a chance of winning are Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo will be familiar to transit workers as the architect and engineer of Tier 6, the architect and engineer of mass COVID death during the COVID-19 pandemic, when he chose to keep the subways open 24/7 and allow the subway system to be a vector of mass death from the disease. Not surprisingly, Andrew Cuomo has his backers. And those with the biggest pom-poms and the most money for Andrew Cuomo, surprise, is the billionaire class. The Michael Bloombergs of the world, the billionaires who pay no taxes in the city or state or country, the MAGA billionaires who got Donald Trump elected for a second term in the White House. So these are the people behind his campaign. And as you're going to see from the videos we're going to share, there are very big differences between the way these campaigns approach dealing with the very real problems of affordability that the working class, especially the poor, especially in New York City, especially young people, are feeling very directly. So I'm going to play a video from Zohran Mamdani that's going to be a back and forth between him and mostly Andrew Cuomo during the debates. And then we're also going to play a video of the kind of response that Andrew Cuomo and the billionaire class are putting out there as their response to Mamdani's focus on affordability. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to watch the first video, which is the debate moments. Okay. Let me just make sure we can see this. Okay, good. Go back.
Andrew Cuomo is going to say a lot of things on the debate stage. I'll just speak to him directly. Andrew, you had your chance to lead this state. You took that time to sell out working class New Yorkers to your billionaire donors.
I work for the people of the state of New York. I don't care who gave me what.
This is the very mayoral candidate who has a super PAC that received $1 million from DoorDash. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone because I'm not funded by the same donors that gave us Donald Trump's second term.
Oh, billionaires. Let's remember this.
Cuomo has cut taxes on millionaires, estates, and banks.
Governor Cuomo has been cutting education and health care spending.
And this governor has siphoned funds from the MTA.
The city has been getting screwed by the state.
Who was leading the state? It was you.
Since we're talking about regrets, what lesson did you learn that you need to change about yourself?
Andrew Cuomo called teachers' unions a selfish industry.
Governor Cuomo has repeatedly denied touching anyone.
Mr. Cuomo, your regrets?
I did not do enough on social media.
Mr. Mamdani, to Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. And I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, what I don't have in experience, I make up for in integrity. And what you don't have in integrity, you could never make up for in experience.
Yes. May I? First, what you said was totally false.
You will hear from Andrew Cuomo about his experience as if the issue is that we don't know about it. The issue is that we have all experienced your experience.
Was it a Cuomo cover-up? Accused of bribery and bid rigging?
Trying to manipulate donor statistics.
Did Governor Cuomo corrupt the commission he set up to get rid of corruption?
Are there New Yorkers who gave money to me and gave money to Donald Trump? Of course. Of course.
Why is that an of course?
If you are a New Yorker, you know Donald Trump, You know me. Many of them would give money to Donald Trump and give money to me.
Mr. Mamdani, have you ever spoken with President Trump?
No.
Will you now look at the camera and tell your super PAC to ensure that this is not a race that is bought by those same Trump billionaires?
You and Donald Trump share in common.
We're New Yorkers. They know me, they know him.
I have the experience of being a New Yorker, someone who has actually paid rent in the city before I ran for mayor.
Mr. Mamdani's right. Mr. Mamdani. He lived here. I live here.
And he's also not been a likable man as governor.
That's why he lost the primary. That's why he'll lose the general election.
And furthermore, the name is Mamdani. Mamdani. You should learn how to say it because we got to get it right.
Okay, so that's the first video.
Andrew, I do think while we have
Oh, I wanted to hear what Andrew Yang had to say. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. How to go directly to irrelevance. While John Lee cues up the next one, I think that's a, regardless of what you're going to say, anything about politics, Mamdani's running a great campaign.
Yeah, sorry about the that I dropped out for a minute. All right, we're going to share the second video to show the quality of Andrew Cuomo's response and what he seems to focus on when it comes to what needs to be responded to, and all that we've seen from Mamdani and what he's focused on in terms of affordability, in terms of the ability for working class and poor New Yorkers to be able not to be pushed out of the city they help build, run, and keep moving. This is Andrew Cuomo's response, and this is what he focused on in the last days of the campaign. It's an AI video, by the way. And we'd like to say in advance, we don't support any of these ideas. You'll see one racist stereotype after another, but we need to know and have eyes wide open about what is really the counter message to Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani's opponents want you to believe he's an inexperienced radical whose policies will make New York City more dangerous. But what do his actual supporters think?
Mamdani isn't crazy. He's just trying to even the playing field.
Give everyone a fair shot. Sure, he said multiple times we need to defund the police, but that was just a metaphor.
And yes, he did say crime is a social construct. But that was also a metaphor.
His main backer, the Democratic Socialists' ideas are common sense, such as
decriminalizing misdemeanors, like shoplifting,
third-degree assault, trespassing, prostitution,
and drunk driving.
with plans to decriminalize all drugs. Mamdani will be a job creator for drug dealers.
Instead of helping us homeless get off the streets and into the mental health facilities we need, he wants to give us safe injection sites to do crack and let us sleep in subway carts.
These are actual policies Mamdani and the DSA want to implement on day one.
When a woman's being domestically abused, she finally won't have to deal with some pesky cop to arrest the abuser, but now a social worker to help, kumbaya the situation.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Mamdani is finally lowering jail sentences.
guilty!
But Mamdani says you're free to go.
Who cares if legalizing prostitution statistically leads to an increase for sex trafficking of women and young girls by 70%?
You can't have safety without equality.
For unlawful abiding citizens like us, globalize the intifada.
I'm a criminal. I'm a criminal. I'm a criminal.
I'm a criminal.
Yep. I'm a criminal.
For Zohran.
For Zohran Mamdani.
I didn't have a real job until I was 30, but sure, give me the keys to the city. What's the worst that can happen?
Paid for by Cuomo for NYC.
Okay, this falls into the category of you couldn't make this shit up. I mean, it's just the level of just disgusting racism on display here is just unbelievable. I mean, this is like post 9/11 America, American white privilege racism on tap. And this is the response. And let's be clear, this is not the response of some fringe element. This is the response of Bill Ackman, one of the richest men in New York. This is the response of Michael Bloomberg, one of the richest men in New York. And when I say one of the richest men in New York, one of the richest men in the world. This is the ideology purveyed by Elon Musk on a regular basis on X. This is the kind of torrent of stereotypical racist scapegoating that is the stock in trade of Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, is everywhere on YouTube. And there's a reason why they own all these social media networks. It's to open the spigot for this kind of racist, violence-inspiring bigotry. And so in any case, there's two reasons why they hate Mamdani, obviously. One is the fact that he's a brown person, that he's Muslim. I mean, it's just that simple. How dare this immigrant criticize the way we do business here in America? How dare he raise expectations that things could ever be any different? And when they talk about, oh, Mamdani is the reason why Mamdani wants municipal grocery stores is that he wants to seize the means of production. That has everything to do with the fact that they don't want you to realize who currently owns the means of production, who currently is pushing us out of the city, which transit workers you help to run, which hospital workers you help to keep safe. Every one of us has more social value than these worthless, lazy, hateful bigots who currently control the means of production. So they're terrified about raising expectations in a society where they know the capitalist system is in free fall. They know their system doesn't serve the interests of the vast majority of the people who live in the society. They know that it's about mass expropriation of our labor value, of our collective power, our productive power, and that everything that we produce is then used as a weapon against us, a weapon against our living standards, a way to target us, a way to target the most oppressed, a way to scapegoat us, a way to find the other in society that they can make the scapegoat for all the problems of society. And this, we have to be honest, is a bipartisan effort. It's not just the Republicans, because when Cuomo takes money from MAGA billionaires who are responsible for restoring Donald Trump to the White House, it shows you that they have a lot of alignment. They are at best collaborators, if not outright supporters of the kind of racist attitudes and violent white supremacist talking points that the billionaire class has been putting forward for decades. And the fact that, and then transit workers will say, well, what does this have to do with our union, right? What does it have to do with our class struggle against the bosses? And the fact is that it has everything to do with our class struggle against the bosses. And you can see that in the response of your own union. Your own union refuses to say anything about the mayoral election, refuses to endorse a candidate, when the architect of Tier 6, the architect of mass death during COVID for transit workers, where 173 transit workers died unnecessarily because Andrew Cuomo made the decision to keep the subway system open 24/7 as a vector for the spread of this deadly disease. The fact that they are silent in the face of that tells us everything that we need to know about how serious they are about mobilizing our class to do anything in the face of Trump and the billionaires' assault on our living standards, on our democratic rights, the fact that we have ICE trolling our cities, and our union does nothing about it. They do nothing about it. And our political disorientation to think that we can opt out of struggles that will determine the course of the future is clueless and dangerous and suicidal. It's like this. It's the same thing as if our union during the civil rights movement decided, no, Mike Quill is not going to unite with Martin Luther King in a fight for civil rights. That's not our fight. Women's rights, that's not our fight. The fight of gay and lesbians for equality, that's not our fight. And every time we do that, we isolate ourselves from the living class struggle, and we make ourselves much weaker and much more a target of the attacks that are coming. So in any case, I just want to open up the discussion for other coalition members to speak, but I want to also focus on the fact that this is not just Mamdani who has created this moment. It is the movement that has created this moment. And that movement is a movement of people who took power into their own hands and saw that they could force those who thought they had all the power in the world over them and could just do whatever they want to them and push them out of their city and privatize their jobs and replace them with AI. And they forced them to eat shit, and they forced them to make concessions, and they forced them to understand that there was a power that could fight back. And they took that power in their own hands, and you can see it in the face of everybody in those rally crowds. You can see it in their eyes that they know they did this. And that means everything. And the fact that our union and the fact that the labor movement overall has not played an active role in this mass movement tells us everything about how much work we have to do to build the labor movement into the kind of force that can actually be part of the solutions that are part of the fucking problem. I'll open up the discussion. Please raise your hand if you want to speak, guys. Okay, Anthony, go ahead.
I don't want to go too long. We're already 17 minutes into this broadcast. To expand on what you just said and what the video showed.
Anthony, your volume is cutting out. You may need to abandon the earphones. I don't know. Can't hear you. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. It's just being moment. No, can't hear you.
Nope.
All right, Anthony, maybe you can go out and come back in. If somebody else wants to speak, and then we'll call.
Yeah, sure, I will. Yeah. I mean, we know the union. I don't even know if the board ever took up the idea even of having, making an endorsement. I'm guessing Mamdani was not the most popular candidate in the, among them, but I'm just surprised how many people I see, who, saying they want, yeah, that they would like to see Sliwa win. I mean, Republicans have never been good for unions. Even in New York City, we had Republican, mayors a couple times, Bloomberg, and Giuliani, and they never did anything for us. We had Republican governors before. We used to, at least, we had Pataki for a while. And if Cuomo is almost a Republican, essentially politically. I mean, he's the guy who can't win without Republican votes, which tells you he's a pretty shitty Democrat at this point. Especially with the ads he's running are just so fucking racist. I'm like I said beforehand, it looks like something you'd see on like SNL or somebody's YouTube comedy channel. Like, it's so fucking outlandishly racist and ridiculous. Like, it's got an actual fucking pimp in there saying vote for Mamdani. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not worth the water that data center wasted to make that fucking video. And it's insulting just to see this shit. And it's like, but it's a sign that Andrew Cuomo still, with a few years to reflect upon his behavior, still refuses to take no for an answer. I mean, he lost because he didn't campaign and because, time passed him by and people want to see a different Democrat. Now he's decided, no, the problem was I just didn't get rejected by enough voters this time. Anthony, you back in?
Anthony, can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, what I was trying to say before I had the technical difficulties is that I didn't want to take too long We're 20 minutes into the session right now, but I wanted to expand a little bit on what you had said and what the videos mentioned, and talk about socialism just a little bit. You know, there's a big fear around socialism, and I would encourage people to read, because you know what I see on social media is a lot of ignorance. And just to mention, you know, two people who are, I guess, giants of the 20th century in this country, Albert Einstein and Martin Luther King. They were both self-professed socialists. Einstein actually said that socialism is humanity as a whole growing out of our infancy. And so I would encourage people to just read more about socialism. And as far as what we're dealing with right now and what people are going to be dealing with when they go into that voting booth, you have a choice, you know. And some people think that I've read comments that you know it's a dismal choice between the three, but I think it's a terrific choice that New Yorkers have right now with Mamdani. It's you're never going to get what you don't fight for, and when you hear the things, not talking about personalities or any scare words or anything, but when you hear the things about what transit workers want and what workers in general want and what the average person wants, you know, affordability, better transit, safer streets, better healthcare, education, all of these things, neither Cuomo nor Sliwa are equipped to provide. Mamdani's the only one who has clear plans about this, and socialists in general are the only ones who've been fighting for and putting these things on the agenda for the past 150 years. So that's all I really have to say, and I would encourage people to read and not just follow behind people because, you know, they're popular or you like them or anything like that. Read, get the facts. That's all I had to say, really.
Yeah. Seth, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll chime in. Yeah, kind of following up on a little bit on what Anthony said, just putting stuff in a historical perspective, right? I mean, you know, we have to realize that the world we live in now is mostly owned by the billionaires, and they set the framework with respect to the idea that, you know, it's like they're somehow amazing and noble and geniuses, and they rose to the top based on, you know, being that and not the fact that they were already raised in very wealthy families and well-connected. And that working people are just, they get, you know, things are getting worse and worse for us, and we're just not working hard enough, and we, you know, we get what we deserve as things get worse and worse. And, you know, so then when someone like Mamdani comes out and says that, you know, there should be free transit or free childcare or grocery stores at reasonable prices that are state-owned, you know, the billionaire class sets their media and all their politicians going, you know, oh my God, this is crazy. This will never work. It'll ruin society, or rent freeze or something like that. And you got to remember that unions and workers 100 years ago were fighting for having similar fights for crazy things like the 8-hour workday or the weekend or health insurance, right? Back then, the rich people and the media and their newspapers and the politicians, they said the exact same thing about overtime pay. They said the exact same thing about getting rid of child labor. So when they're all this stuff about, oh, these things can't work and stuff like that, that's just because they know it's going to cut into their profit margin and that working people are going to do better, right? And they want to do anything they can to stop that, right? And the world we're living in now, where all of us know, all of us working people know that things are getting worse and worse for us every year. The city is barely affordable, right? We can't afford childcare. We can't afford rent increases. And that thing has played up in the country. And now it's helped, both parties joined in on that. And we ended up having, right, neither party would address it. You had both parties, you know, just saying, oh, we're just going to go along and let the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And then someone like Trump comes in and he actually taps into the anger about that, right? But it's not, he doesn't actually have any real solutions. He's just blame immigrants or blame black people or blame unions. And so we end up with a society where all working and oppressed people are under attack. He's fired federal workers, unionized workers, got rid of their contracts. He's taking away funding for major projects like the Gateway Project and transit funding. He's attacking, right? He's a felon. He's a criminal, as are many people in his administration. And yet he's attacking grandmothers and hardworking people in factories and pulling them out, ripping them from their families and sending them away, right? And so Mamdani comes out, unions aren't fighting it. Most Democrats aren't fighting against this, but Mamdani comes out and says, yes, there is a problem and things are getting harder. But it's not an immigrant, or it's not black people, or it's not unions that are a problem. It's the billionaires that are the problem, and the fact that working people can't afford to live in the city. And he's built a movement based on that, right? Estimates are like 90,000 volunteers, right? And that movement, if you look at history, movements like that, if they build and expand, are the things that can win back things, can get unions fighting again, can stop things like fascism and those attacks, can get better health insurance, better wages, better working conditions. And that's why it's so important. That's why I support, and I think Fightback supports Mamdani's campaign and calls for all workers to vote for him, right? Now, we don't know how he's going to play out and all that stuff necessarily, but we know that his message and his program have triggered a movement. And if we can connect that up to working people, that can be a beacon. If we can win those things, we all know that Trump, right, now he's got into office, all his talk about making things better for working people, it was all lies. It's all bullshit. All my costs have gone up. My health, right? My rent, my housing costs have gone up. My grocery costs have gone up. My childcare costs have gone up, right? All he does is support the billionaires, and he tries to tap into the anger of people, but it hasn't helped us, right? The tariffs have screwed us over. Taking away immigrant workers have screwed us over with costs, right? But Mamdani is actually putting forth solutions. He says, instead of targeting immigrants, let's actually make childcare free. Let's actually make buses free. Let's actually freeze the rent. Those are concrete things that if we can win some of that stuff, it will spread like wildfire around the country and around the world. And so we have to recognize that historically movements like that, when they win, they set a beacon for the world. And that's why if he does win, and I'm going to encourage everyone to vote for him. If it does win, then the billionaires and Trump and MAGA are all going to do everything they can to try and defeat him, right? To make sure that we can't win those things and that we stay miserable, right? And that's why all of us, if he does win, are going to have to be involved to pushing our union and all unions and working people in this city and country in general to push for those demands, right? Because, and you know, the funny thing is, I loved it when he was first running and Fox and all MAGA were like, they'd put his program out there and be like, oh my God, look what he's doing. You know, he's such a villain. And everyone, all working people like, wait, free housing? I mean, free transit, free childcare, lower housing prices? You're just making his case for him, right? We have to realize that. And so this is going to be a real moment. I think there's a good chance that he wins. And if he does win, we all need to be involved to push for him to actually fight for things and not just make concessions to billionaires once he gets into office. And we have to push and, you know, argue against the Democratic Party that mostly is still backed by, you know, massive billionaires as well, and say that, you know, this is the way to fight Trump, not whatever, you know, crap Washington, you know, oh, I object type of thing. You know, this is the type of thing can actually push back against the attacks. I'll leave it there for now.
Tom, would you like to speak?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
No, I heard Seth, but not you. Can you hear
I can
me?
hear John.
We can hear you.
You can hear me? Everybody else can hear me, right?
I don't know why.
I think you're probably
Tom.
I think you're having a problem with audio, Tom.
Yeah. So Tom, if you want to say something, just chime in. We can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I think something that you said towards the end there, Seth, I didn't really have a lot to add to it, but the fact that if Zohran does get elected, that's really just the beginning of the fight, because as you point out, he's going to encounter all the power of the billionaire class, the capitalist class are going to discover class consciousness, are going to come together and try to undermine every single thing that he attempts to do, which means that this is just the beginning, that we are going to have to increase deepen, expand the fight, and show that it's contrary to their sort of historical analysis of the great man of history. We're not looking for Moses to lead us to the promised land. We all need to play a part in these coming struggles. And as John had mentioned earlier, you can see it in the eyes of the people that attend those rallies. They know that they have been a part of something. And that layer of the working class that is disillusioned, that fell under the spell of MAGA, when they went to those rallies, they felt like they were part of something. It just shows how the desire to be active in that struggle, and the fact that the union bureaucracy has held that back in collusion with the Democratic Party for so long, has had people moved off the field and up into the stands as spectators in their own struggle, believing that somebody down there was going to eventually rise to the top and lead us all to the better world, the better standard of living that we all need, and stop the blood, the slaughter that we've been suffering for the last 40 to 50 years under the intensifying neoliberal economic theory and the policies that are enacted under that. So that's really all I had to say, is that we're just beginning. Hopefully this will be the beginning of much deeper and more widespread fights to come.
Yeah, I think Tom raises an important point of the connection between the miseducation that we have received at the hands of our own union bureaucrats and the miseducation of the working class in general in society that is really at fault for the level of consciousness that we currently have in our class. Like, if you think about Trump posing as a daddy figure, posing as somebody who's going to be your messenger, somebody who's going to do the fighting for you, somebody who's going to be your message of revenge to those who you feel have caused your economic anxiety and insecurity. Well, in the same way, the union bureaucracy has painted this mythic man of history like we just need the great leader to speak for us, to make the bosses heel, to basically show their power as a counter to the boss's power. And the bottom line is that that's an infantile way to understand the class struggle, and it's not based in any reality. The class struggle is a struggle of the class, the whole class. It has to represent the interest of all members of the working class, especially the most oppressed. And it has to be a class-wide fight. And Zohran, when he speaks about these things, like Seth is right, we don't give anybody a pass. We don't write anybody a blank check. We don't say that Zohran will solve all our problems. We don't have that illusion. The people who have illusions in politicians are those who push practical, neoliberal, class partnership kind of political ideologies. That if we just vote for the right people, that it's going to change our lives. That if we vote for people who take crime seriously and throw all the criminals in jail and crack down on fare evaders and the homeless and kick the shit out of drug and alcohol addicted people, that somehow things will be better for us and that daddy's going to save us. That is a dangerous, suicidal, and infantile understanding of the dangers that we face. In fact, that daddy is the one laying waste to our living standards, sending armed Gestapo with masks into our streets to kidnap our community members. They are gasoline on the fire. They are not the firemen. We're the ones who put out the fires, the working class. It is our productivity. It is our ability to collectively organize with each other that reclaims our humanity and shows a vision of a future that doesn't now exist, but very much can. And it's our mobilization, our ability to engage in class solidarity that begins to change our morale and change our view of what's possible. And it not only changes the view of what's possible for us, it captures the imagination of the entire society. Why do you think the capitalists are so invested in the media, in the educational system, in every way of understanding the world around us? It's because they want to write history in real time and change the narrative and get us to buy into self-hating narratives that actually divide us and weaken us and keep us passive and on the sidelines and keep us rationalizing that it always has to be that way. And social movements are the things that rip all of those illusions apart and force people to come to grips with the real conditions of life in the world they actually live in and begin to reclaim their own history and write it themselves. And that's what trade unions were built to do. And that's why trade unions were built by socialists, not by pro-capitalist bootlickers and ass-kissers. And that's why, for example, you want to bring it back to transit. That's why management has no respect for us. That's why they write a bulletin that tells us, go exchange your radio on your own time. Go exchange our shitty equipment for new shitty equipment on your own time. Why do they have the arrogance and the contempt for our class that allows them to have those words come past their lips? It's because they don't respect our class, because they're pushing the envelope to see exactly how far they can go until they can just dispense with us even having a union, dispense with us having any contractual rights whatsoever, and demoralize us so much that we'll just accept it. And so when people say that these things are not connected, they're missing the forest from the trees, and it only shows how long it's been since we've taken power in our own hands and actually understand the tremendous, mighty power that the working class has, that has laid dormant for so many years, that a miserable racist scumbag like Trump can come and hijack our hopes and our fears and weaponize it against us and have us tearing each other apart while they laugh all the way to the bank. So I know that people are very hopeless right now, and people have a lot of reason to be fearful. They have a lot of reason to be very worried that the world will never be the same again. But the only guarantor of that ever happening is our own conscious activity, political organization, and fighting for our own class consciousness and using our class power as a weapon of self-defense. And we just haven't seen that. And that's why things look so bleak. I'm going to open up the floor for discussion. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah. I wouldn't, I would say things look kind of bleak, but there's a lot of hope out there. I mean, people are waking up. You just had a protest with over 7 million people in the streets. If that can, be galvanized into action, then there's a lot of hope that things will change. But, when we talk about people's perspectives and what the wealthy, the 1% are doing, they've managed to take a billionaire who inherited his money and cast him as a man of the people, as a populist. And here you have a guy who is a Muslim, which is less than, maybe around 1% of the population in the United States. And they've managed to create a sense of fear that somehow Sharia law is going to come to the United States with this one man who is very secular, not very religious at all. This one man is going to somehow bring Islamic takeover to the United States. And that's what we have to combat, and what we have to, we have to get people to realize and get people to think and ask questions. And here in our union, it's like, you got to ask yourself, why hasn't our union taken a side in this mayoral race? Why haven't they? You got to ask your union officials why. Have them qualify that stance. I saw a post today where they just said we're not endorsing somebody in the mayoral's race, but these are the people we do endorse. And they had a collection of local officials who are running for office in the city who they endorse. And I really want to know the answer to the question: why aren't they endorsing somebody in the mayoral race? And how the hell can they call themselves the Fightback, America's Fightback Union, and then not fighting back? Those are the two things I really want to know the answer to from our union. And those are the things that I would encourage anybody here who's part of our union to ask of your union officials when you see them or have conversations with them.
Yeah, well, Anthony, I think part of it is that we have a lot of closet Trumpsters in our union, aka John Chiarello and others, who are awful silent about Donald Trump. In fact,
then they are anti-union. These men are not union men if you support Trump. That's the bottom line. There's no way you
what is that? What is that?
I don't know what the hell that is. Somebody's got something going on in the background.
Motorcycle on the street outside my place.
Street outside.
Close your window, Ray. But anyway,
I don't know how you get any sleep, Ray.
There's no way you can be a union, call yourself pro-union, pro-labor, pro-worker, pro-black, pro-immigrant, pro-anything progressive. You can't be calling yourself progressive and be pro-Trump. Period. Point blank, period.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, how can a union that represents all these bus drivers not support a candidate who's for free buses, which they know when they implemented it on one bus line in each borough led to a 40% decrease in assaults on bus drivers? But you care about safety, right? It's all about safety. It's all about keeping our members safe. But we don't have time for rational solutions. Let's just throw everybody into Rikers. That's the solution.
Staten Island Ferry's been free for decades.
Yeah. And Mike Quill, by the way, was for free mass transit.
A lot of people are. Some cities have it.
Mm-hmm. Seth, I see you had your hand up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, on that, I think, right, Anthony came up to the conclusion that our union leadership, like Chiarello, Richie Davis beforehand, Eric Logel, are anti-union. And it's absolutely 100% true. These are the people who push for all retirees to be forced onto Medicare Advantage, right? So we know they're anti-union and they're anti-worker. Their record shows it. And so we don't have to guess about that, but this is yet another point. And it's important to point out, right, that, if people, I've had conversations with some transit workers, some are very, understand the situation and are very pro Mamdani, and some don't understand the stakes. But you have to understand that when you have a movement like MAGA and you have someone like Trump who is rabidly anti-union and has a history of being anti-union and has fired tens or hundreds of thousands of federal workers, right, government workers, and broke union contracts, that this doesn't stop, right? When these people get more and more power and they win, they don't stop with this union or that union. It spreads. And that's how fascism has always worked. First target, right, communists and socialists and Jews, homosexuals, right? And then it spreads and spreads and spreads, right? And if you think that us as a multiracial union in New York City, right, that are government workers in public transit are not going to be attacked by MAGA and the Trump administration at some point, then you are living in a fantasy world, right? That is how this world works. And if we do not fight back now, if we do not stand and say that we're going to stand with other workers, we're all struggling under Trump, right, where these increased costs and attacks on immigrant workers, attacks on government workers, if we do not stand up now and fight back against that, and Mamdani and his movement are leading that fight. If you do not choose a side now, right, then they're going to come for us. And the fact that this union administration will not stand up and take a side on that, when Cuomo put Tier 6 into effect, it tells you that these people are traitors, right?
Yeah, Seth, let's just remember that the union was the getaway driver for Andrew Cuomo in fucking us with Tier 6. And they fucked 600,000 other state workers with worse. With 62 401k pensions. So it's not a surprise. I mean, this is who it's not just who they are, it's who they have been for decades.
Right. Do you guys think I should take a minute as, as someone who's Jewish in New York City, and just say a little bit about the, all the fear mongering with respect to Mamdani and Islam and stuff like that? Or do you think that stuff?
No, go ahead.
Sure, and also as part of that, you should probably talk about the cowardice of our union leadership in saying nothing about a genocide.
Yeah.
For 2 fucking years.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say that as I'm a Jewish New Yorker, right? I was raised Jewish. I'm not religious, but I'm culturally Jewish, raising my kids that way. The idea that somehow Mamdani as a Democratic Socialist is an Islamic threat is absolutely absurd. The idea that his positions on Israel, when Israel is committing a genocide, right, and has killed tens of thousands of women and children, right, in a horrible attack on Gaza, the fact that they're attacking him for that position when clearly and I can just tell you there are tons of Jews who stand up against the genocide, who want to support, who support the Gazans, support Palestinians, right? The idea that, and for those of you who don't, you can look up Naomi Klein, a famous Jewish activist. She was where we went to a Seder that she did a couple years ago in Grand Army Plaza, where she made a speech about how Jews need an exodus from Zionism, how Zionism is actually a threat to Jewish people, right? So the idea that somehow Mamdani being anti the genocide, or even that he wants Israel to not be a Jewish state and wants it to be a democratic secular state, which is something I totally agree with. I'm against religious states of any type, right? So the idea that somehow that they're trying to play up fears of Jewish people, that Mamdani is somehow going to be a threat is absolutely absurd, right? When these billionaires are supporting Trump, who is putting forth Christian nationalism, right? Forcing people to have the 10 Commandments in their schools, which is a big thing for Christians, right? They want a state Christian religion. So this idea that somehow that Mamdani as a Muslim Democratic Socialist is a threat is absolutely absurd. And there are huge numbers of Jewish people who stand with Mamdani and recognize that MAGA and Trump are the real threat. And that Mamdani stands for basic social justice, which is something that's been a core part of Jewish activism for, ever since the days of the Jewish ghettos in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, it really tells you something about the fact that standing for Palestinian human rights and democratically functioning states, not those based on privileges for certain religions or certain ethnicities, is controversial. Like they won't stop talking about it. Mamdani is not going back to that question. He's running for mayor of New York City. He's running on affordability. He's running on very specific plans on how he wants to govern New York City. But they constantly keep going back to it and scandalizing it. The idea that those ideas are radical is just, I mean, it's like we don't have a Statue of Liberty in the harbor. It's like we don't have any kind of pretense of democratic rights or freedoms, that this country doesn't go all over the world and scream from the mountaintops about how they are the center of democracy and freedom. And yet somebody says, yes, Palestinians should have these rights too. And they're like, oh my God, they're running with their ears bleeding. It just shows you the level of hysteria that is in this country. And a lot of it has to do with the entrenchment of white supremacy, of anti-blackness, of imperialist privilege. And, we are the belly of the beast of the world imperialist order. And the reason why these ideas are out of the framework of what's permissible to say in society has everything to do with the media, has everything to do with the corporate democratic establishment. And they are just as bloodthirsty and just as scorched earth in their attempt to silence any discussion of human rights, any discussion that we should actually fight for those democratic rights to be accessible to everyone in the world. It shows you everything there is to know about their complicity with fascism, their complicity with the destruction of our democratic rights. Anthony, I think you were trying to speak.
Yeah. I was just going to say we still have a First Amendment, and they made it the First Amendment for a reason. They wanted a secular state, not a religious state. You know,
they were
that's
deists.
probably
They weren't even religious.
No,
they were deists.
Yeah, exactly. And what did I want to say? Yeah, we have a First Amendment, and our union, you know, well, not just our union, but a lot of what I see now is where there's a movement. I didn't mean to say our union. I meant to say our current administration. You know, with Trump issuing, you know, he didn't issue an order, but he said on his Truth Social, whatever, about, you know, they're persecuting Christians in Nigeria, and he's using that as a pretext to suggest a military action. When, you know, it's like they want people to fight these culture wars and these religious wars rather than stay focused on the fact that our country has always been, you know, a brutal, repressive, and totally focused on capital. Everything this country has ever done has been in the service of capital, and whether it be to use racism in that manner, you know, like when Obama was elected and when he was president, you know, they used he wore a tan suit, you know, things like that nature to try and say that he was unpresidential, or, you know, they went after, you know, who his pastor was to say he wasn't American, all of these things, you know, and now, you know, they're trying to define, you know, if you look at the Department of Labor and look at what they have on their what the Department of Labor has on their website right now, all of these cartoons that resemble propaganda from Nazi Germany, you know, jobs for Americans first, and yet we're not educating Americans to fill these jobs. The reason why you have these visas for people to come over from these different countries is because we don't have enough Americans who have the skills to fill these high-tech jobs, because our educational system failed us, and our educational system is designed to keep us docile and to make us into nothing but consumers. So it's like they're keeping people divided so that they can maintain power, you know, and it's such a miseducation. They've been so successful with their miseducation that you have one of the largest unions in the country that still hasn't grasped that they have the most union-friendly, labor-friendly candidate that we've seen in a generation, at least actually since I've been alive. You have the most labor-friendly candidate for mayor in New York City, who's run since I've been alive. And this huge union, once powerful union, can't see itself to endorsing him for some odd reason, which I'm asking the question again. Please answer. Why haven't you endorsed him?
Whose dog is that? That's you?
Okay. I think Anthony's dog's.
Anthony's dog. All right. We have a comment I just want to respond to because it shows the level of response we get sometimes from union members. And I just want to put it on the screen. Okay. How can you even back the idea of Zohran? He has never had a job, and the stuff he has said, posted should tell you that he will destroy the city, free buses and trains. I have to laugh. We all know it does not work, and who will pay for it? The MTA already taxes the hell out of New Yorkers already. Have you seen the DMV and all the other bills with an MTA surcharge? And naturally, the solution is to vote for Curtis Sliwa. So, I mean, just to respond to all of this, like the working class has always paid taxes. We pay taxes for services. We're supposed to get something for our money. We don't get anything for our money. Who does get all the tax money that you pay? It all goes to the corporations. It all goes to tax breaks for them so that they don't pay taxes. In terms of who will pay for it, he is telling you exactly who will pay for it. a 2% increase in the amount that billionaires like Bill Ackman and Michael Bloomberg pay, and you're crying about higher taxes for them, you have to be kidding me. Go ahead, Anthony. You have to unmute.
Yeah, I just want to answer his question, and not, I don't want to be harsh or anything, or and I understand what he's talking about, because his response is exactly what they keep feeding people. The who will pay for it. Billionaires basically have turned our public transit system into a for-profit entity for them. And that's through the issuing of bonds. They don't pay taxes for the transit system, but they do lend money to the city and state to fund transit and other public projects. And we, the taxpayers, pay these back because our tax money goes to service that debt with interest. So basically, they have us, in service to them. And it's our tax dollars that are paying for it there. Now, if you flip that and had them pay taxes like us, then a lot of these programs would be funded, and they would be fully funded. Your educational systems would be funded. Your buses and subways would be free, or at least a reasonable amount, where you wouldn't have people who make minimum wage who are hopping the subway, because you have people who work who are hopping the subway and who are going through the walking past the bus driver. It's not just derelicts or whatever. It's working people that are doing this. You have, throughout our country, you have working people who are dependent upon SNAP benefits. Yet the profits have gone through the roof. Our real wages have gone down, along with union membership. You have to. Somebody has sirens in their background.
Yeah, right. Okay, you got it.
Yeah. Profits have gone up through the roof. Our real wages of working people have gone down. But he says that's why he moved to New Jersey. I live in New Jersey too. It's not just New York. It's all over the country that these issues are. But it's like, who will pay for it are the people who are ripping us off and who are not paying for it now.
I mean, I think we need to get out of this scarcity mindset, okay? They want you to think that there are scarce resources and that we have to fight slitting each other's throats for the crumbs from the boss's table. And it's just not true. Look at the state budget process, okay? The state budget was $254 billion. And you have to ask yourself, where is that money going? Where is the money going? Where does it all go? And it doesn't go to working class and poor communities. And us fighting a war of all against all, like the fucking Hunger Games every year, with Kathy Hochul and her corrupt donors getting every fucking spare dime that's not nailed down, is the problem. And Zohran is looking to uproot that problem. And yet you attack him. I don't understand. I don't understand why it's Zohran is the responsibility for you paying taxes when it's Kathy Hochul taxing you, when it's Andrew Cuomo taxing you, when it's Eric Adams taxing you. Where is the hostility coming from that personifies all the problems with somebody who's not in power? Make that make sense. Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I addressed this one of the first things that I said, which is that the rich and the power, like the rich and the powerful said, he's saying that Mamdani's policies will destroy New York. The rich and the powerful 100 years ago said the same thing about unions. They said the same thing about the weekend. They said the same thing about an 8-hour workday when workers were working 14 to 16 hours. So it doesn't hold water, right? Socialists and leftists have always pushed for better things for working people. And because it cuts into the bottom line of the rich, they always say that's going to destroy the city. That won't work. Right? It's just not true, right? The 8-hour workday works fine. The weekend works fine. I'm
sorry, Seth. Let me intervene for a minute, okay? I just want to put something up on the screen, okay? Because what's really behind all of this hate for Zohran, what's really behind he's a scary person and he has a hidden agenda is this. This is what it's about. The same people who are selling you the lies that Zohran wants to raise your taxes and wants to make life even more unaffordable for you. This is what they're actually about. This is what they are actually pushing. That's what's coming out of the other side of their mouth. One side tells you he's this crazy, he's never held a job, he's incompetent, he's going to make life unaffordable for you. The other side says he's an Islamist who's going to bring in Sharia law and that we're going to wind up invaded like Europe. Let's not act like we don't know that this is coming from the same people. Come on. Seth, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's just break down the facts. He says we know this won't work. Okay, so the billionaires tax was already put into effect in Massachusetts. It worked. Okay, so that's what Zohran's talking about. Billionaires didn't flee there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
We can now.
Okay, so the billionaires didn't flee there. It's bringing in a bunch of money. We have to understand that in America, ever since Reagan, right, that the rich have paid less and less taxes and workers have gotten more and more productive, right? But we're not seeing any benefit from that. Our wages haven't gone up. So more and more of the money is going to the billionaires and less is going to our social programs, to transit, to all that stuff, right? Once again, let's just go to facts. They tried the free buses in the pilot program. It worked, okay? Assaults on bus workers were down. The buses were ran more quickly, and their ridership was up. There's no denying that. And the fact is that many transit unions in the world for a long time have pushed for free, that the fare should be free and that it should be paid for by the rich and the powerful, right? Not be paid for by fares by working people, right? You got to learn your history about unions. That's just the truth of the matter, okay? And other things that he's doing, things like state grocery stores, they've already been done in the United States over the years. Once again, you can look that up as well. It's been done. It's not some radical thing. So this idea that these things, once again, this is the rich and the powerful, like they did 100 years ago, telling you that unions and ending child labor and doing the weekend or an 8-hour workday was just going to destroy the economy. It didn't. It just made lives better for the working people and took a little profit away from the rich and the powerful. So as you're saying that, you're just buying into the mentality that the billionaires are pushing into you, and you have to learn your union history to push back against that. That's what a union person does.
And the other question is, like, he's talking about raising the corporate tax rate to the same level as New Jersey. You know, the Communist Republic of New Jersey, that great commune to the south of us that has just these outrageous taxes on corporations. Well, are we fucking serious right now? You live in New Jersey, and he's talking about raising the tax rate for businesses to the same level in your state, and you're against it. Why? Make it make sense. And Zohran's not responsible for your Easy Pass, by the way. That is New York State Governor Kathy Hochul and New Jersey State Governor Phil Murphy. And that money's going to the MTA, which is a slush fund and a piggy bank for corporate swine, the same corporate swine that is selling you these talking points. You think these are your own ideas, but they're not. They're tapping into your anxiety and your frustration with being taxed. Yeah, we are against higher taxes for the working class. We are for much lower taxes on the working class. And guess what? So is Zohran. Okay? Right. You're taxed on your cell phone bill for the MTA. You're taxed on your city taxes for the MTA. You're taxed on your state taxes for the MTA. You're taxed on your federal taxes for the MTA. But then they want you to pay again. And nobody seems to have any concern about the fact that 1 in 5 New Yorkers simply cannot afford $2.90 or $3 on a weekly basis. So what are your solutions? What is the counter proposal? Do nothing? Fuck them, let them not go to work? How does that make any sense? Anthony, go ahead. I see you're right. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah. I got to go in a few minutes. I gotta do a couple of things. But just to address what he was asking a little bit, and to piggyback on what you were saying, decades ago when they built the Verrazano Bridge, they said that the toll was going to be temporary, just to cover the cost of construction. Then they said, well, we need a toll for maintenance. And now we have the highest bridge toll in probably the entire United States going over the Verrazano Bridge. Recently, you know, we've had what is that in Midtown, congestion pricing? We have congestion pricing, and that largely affects the working class, the middle class, you know, the small business owner who has to bring things, has to go back and forth into Midtown and throughout Manhattan throughout the day. It largely affects those people, right? Now, we've had these transportation-related taxes for decades, and they mostly always affect the working class or the small business owner, not the very wealthy. And if you go back, you can look over the decades on the federal level, on the state level, on the city level. For the most part, taxes on the wealthy have been cut progressively over and over again. And everybody cheers for the candidate who says he's going to cut taxes, but it's never the taxes on the middle class or the working class or the poor. It's always the taxes on the wealthy. And look at where we are. We're complaining about the situation that we have, whether you're right, you stand with these fake populists, whether you think because it is a thought, it's not a reality, whether you think that the Republican Party is for you or not, whether you think that most of the majority of these corporate Democrats are working for you, or whether you feel that the socialist or the leftist candidate is just too far radical or the ideas that they're pushing are too far radical or too fantastical to ever be achieved. Whether you think that or not, the fact is that we've moved so far to the right, and that they are paying less taxes and you're paying more. So when you talk about who's going to pay for it, back then, when we were building these things, when we were building parks, universities, highways, or whatever, the corporate tax rate and the tax rate on the wealthy was up here, and your tax rate was maybe down here. So we have to move to where it's more like this. Their tax rate goes up to where it was before, and our tax burden goes down. That's how you pay for these things, because the concentration of wealth in this country is in the hands of a few, very wealthy. It's not with us anymore. And I agree with you. We shouldn't be taxed anymore. We can't be taxed anymore. We can't bear the burden anymore. We can't do without anymore. We can't see our kids look and feel that they have no future anymore. So I encourage you and all your members to just, you know what, I'm not going to force my thoughts on you, but I encourage you to do some reading, to read about where the tax rate was when we were building these things, to look at what's going on now and who's paying for what. They've turned the NTA is a money-making machine for wealthy bondholders. They get those payments tax-free.
Triple
tax-free. Whether a motherfucker pays, whether somebody pays the fare or not, they're going to get their money.
First. They're going to get their money
exactly first.
Before you get paid.
During COVID, they floated the idea of laying us off and of reducing service, but they never considered temporarily stopping interest payments on the debt. Never. Not once. So this is where you got to look. Yo, these people who are backing Cuomo and are funneling money to Sliwa also are the same people who fund the think tanks that say we're only going to get a 1%, 2% raise. These are the same people who recommend that. These are the same people who back Trump, who back cutting funding for transit. Not just for our salaries, but everything overall. Safety, everything. So you got to realize, like, the money is there. It's just not in our hands or in our control. And we got to take that back.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go.
Yeah, I know, Ray, you got to leave. Anthony, you got to leave, right?
Yeah, I got to go. So that's one thing I wanted to say before I left.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. And for all our transit workers, look, read and get more involved. Have a good evening, everybody. Enjoy your rest of your Sunday.
See you, Anthony.
Ray, I know you wanted to speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to just hear what James says about the idea of Mamdani's never had a job. It's like, what the hell has Sliwa done? He founded the Guardian Angels. He's hosted a radio show. That's it. That's his resume.
He's a vigilante.
Yeah. And have you looked at the state of the
rips up
Guardian Angels?
clients.
They are a shell of what they used to be. I mean, they can barely get 10 people together to do anything these days. He's been caught lying about his experience before about with the Angels and just in person. Mamdani doesn't have experience. Neither does Sliwa, and Cuomo has arguably too much experience because we know what he's done. I mean, you might say he's got to you don't want him learning on the job, but Sliwa's going to do exactly the same thing every other middle of the road mayor has done. Every other middle of the road politician, senator, congressman, governor, they all do the same shit. We'll pander to corporations, we'll slash services and lay off workers. And that shit doesn't work. It doesn't, that's what's, and that little pound of flesh that they take from us every time, that's just us screwing ourselves. Mamdani is at least willing to try something different. He's not telling you, I'm going to reduce these services. I'm going to take money away from you. For example, he had a few weeks ago meetings with landlords. And landlords, in the primaries were very much against him, especially the big ones. And he was saying part of the issue is, your buildings are taxed wrong. Apartment buildings get taxed at a much lower rate than brownstones and mansions. So the guy who will, one of them was even saying, I read an interview with them because they were talking with, New York Magazine about the meeting afterwards. And they thought it went well. They were impressed with him. They even said, there's a brownstone down the street that pays $1,200. Mine's $2,700. And, change that. Why the fuck is a giant building that's being, housing 2 or 3 people paying so much less in taxes when it's so much goddamn larger? That's it. That right there gives you the opportunity to do things like a rent freeze. I mean, under Adams, my rent has gone up 12%. My paycheck hasn't gone up 12%. But the cost of my groceries and clothes hasn't gone up, just as much. I can't take another mayor who's just going to say, I'm going to, do the same. Who's going to be doing the same thing that most mayors in my lifetime have done. And and people can talk about, he's going to destroy New York. We survived crack. We survived the blackout. We survived literally being fucking bankrupt in the 70s. We survived a mayor. We survived multiple terrorist attacks. We survived Sandy. We survived the mayor who for the last 4 years has literally been for sale to foreign governments. I think you could survive a mayor who, at worst, is inexperienced.
Well, the other, Seth, I see you. I just want to make this comment. Anytime you're voting in an election, you're always voting for the best position for your class and for your communities to bargain and fight for the things that you need. It's determining the battlefield we will look at and in the future. Do I want somebody in power who went on a 15-day hunger strike with taxi drivers and won them $450 million in debt relief from the same financial parasites who make my life, your life, and everyone around you miserable? The banks, the financial predators who dish out mass misery to every single working class and poor New Yorker. Do I want that person across the bargaining table, or do I want someone who's in the pockets of these fucking criminals? It's that simple. And when we talk about, like we have transit workers putting comments in here talking about how we all need to set up a side business that doesn't affect dual employment to give you better tax breaks and write-offs. I mean, here you're talking about Zohran's ideas not being practical and reasonable. You're talking about Zohran's ideas never coming to fruition. This is a pipe dream. This is a fantasy. That we are all not going to be bosses. We are all not gonna just hustle hard enough and grind hard enough and survive the capitalist hellscape that they have created. They are the disease. They are not the cure. Being one of them is not the solution. It's not the way through. There are no individual solutions, ever. There never has been. If that wasn't the case, you would not have sought to join a union. You would have never sought to get a union job. because you got a union job, because you knew that unions have collective power and have been able to win real gains collectively as a class, and that it was through our collective labor and our unwillingness and our defiance to accept disrespect that we could bring them to their knees. That is our power, not becoming one of them. Stop listening to Elon Musk. Okay, Elon Musk is not on your side. He's a fucking parasite. He is your enemy. Okay, when you're in a battle where you're getting attacked by all sides, and James Maldonado's comments, they very much reflect that. We're being attacked on all sides. We're getting taxed to death. We're being bled for everybody else's interests but our own. But we have to know which side of the barricades we are on. And we have to know the consequences for refusing to stand and fight for a Muslim man who is racially attacked because he dares to say that we could demand better, that we could demand that working class voices be centered in the conversation, that a person that actually listens to working class voices, talks about people working the night shift, wants to see bus operators not assaulted, wants to fund the things that we need. And yet we attack him relentlessly. We're trained to attack him relentlessly as the cause of the problem, as the threat. No, the threat is right in front of us. It's right across the table between us and the bosses. It's in your face every day. It's as clear as fucking day. It's as clear as day who's exploiting us. And it's not Zohran Mamdani. It's fucking Andrew Cuomo. It's Jano Lieber. It's Critchlow. It's the rest of these bastards. We know who they are, and we know who they work for. The bond debt. $54 billion in bond debt that's triple tax exempt. And you wonder where the money's going. Is it Zohran raising taxes 2% on the rich that's the problem? Or is it their fucking corporate greed and their tax holidays everywhere the eye can see? I mean, we got to get real, people. We are in a very dangerous situation where it's very much on the table whether we will ever have unions again, whether we will ever have democratic rights, whether our neighbors will be fucking kidnapped from our streets and taken off to gulags where they're tortured by our dictator-in-chief and wannabe fucking king. Wake up. There are very real stakes, and we are behind the eight ball right now. We're on one side of the barricades, and all we can do is organize the best collective fight to defend ourselves and survive. This is about survival right now. We have to know what time it is. I'm sorry. Curtis Sliwa is a fucking racist gangster. He's a fucking he's somebody who whips up people's anger and uses it as a weapon to attack immigrants, to attack people who are marginalized, to attack people who are not the cause of your fucking problem. They are not the reason why you're being assaulted. The billionaire class is the reason why you're being assaulted. That logo you put on you, the MTA, it's like a fucking target, so that all the anger in society that should be directed at these fucking criminals is directed at you. And Curtis Sliwa ain't got no fucking solutions for that, except to whip up even more on people who have nothing to fucking do with your problems. Seth, go ahead. I know you want to speak.
Yeah, I'm curious what James would think. There's one person who's responsible for raising taxes on working people around the country right now, and that's Trump, right? All our costs are going up when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the department store, all those places because of Trump's tariffs. Those are taxes. Right? We pay for them. It's already documented over and over again that that's raising costs on working people by approximately $3,000 to $5,000 a year, right? And we know that Curtis Sliwa would just go along with Trump. And I disagree with Ray that Sliwa doesn't have a track record, right? He does have a very specific employment record, which is he's on video, right, having his goons ethnically target and beat up an American citizen, right? Because they think he's undocumented immigrant, right? So that's his record, is beating up American citizens of color, right? In part of his frenzy to go after immigrants. That's documented. You can look that video up right now. And you think that if he wins, and with Trump in power, that we in a union, multiracial union with a lot of Black and Latino members would not be targeted as part of this, as part of this frenzy is ridiculous. So you're siding with attacks on our own union brothers and sisters, right? And you're siding with Trump's raising in taxes against us and buying into the whole argument that Mamdani, who says he actually has solutions to lower costs for working class people like us, right, is somehow the problem, right? And as I said, you're buying into the same thing. If you 100 years ago, you'd be saying, no, we shouldn't have the 8-hour workday. We shouldn't have unions. We should still have child labor, right? Those policies that those radicals and unions and socialists are talking about, those are going to ruin the country, right? That's what you bought into. It's that simple.
I just want to try to wrap up because we're at like an hour and 20 minutes right now. So we want to try to keep these things short because we know people have a lot to do on the weekend. Ray, did you have any further comments to wrap up?
Yeah, I was going to say, like Seth said, Slee was not going to stand up to Donald Trump, and Cuomo isn't. And I've heard people say, I've heard people
said so at the debate, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he say at the debate we can't fight him?
I didn't watch the debate. I already knew who I was voting for. So
yeah, he said he's a macho guy. He's always going to win.
Yeah, but no, I've heard people say, "Oh, it's only going to be worse if Mamdani's mayor. He'll target the city. It's like, look, the 4 words nobody wants to hear are "fuck you, make me." Nobody has ever appeased a bully successfully by saying, "Here's the thing you want me to do. Now, please leave me alone." They always come back and demand more. They shove a little shit into your mouth and make you eat it. The only way to fight a bully is to stand up, and metaphorically speaking, you punch him in the fucking nose. And if he hits you back, you come back with 6 other people who hate him and you beat the shit out of him. Metaphorically speaking, because you can't actually fight a president. But you're never going to beat a guy like Trump by just rolling over. You need someone who's going to tell him to go fuck himself.
Yeah. I just want to put one more comment up here because it's another question that people get confused over. Tariffs is a tool for temporary use to force us to bring back some of the manufacturers we have lost, so much skilled workers and manufacturers, and COVID opened the door of how vulnerable we are. Yeah, tariffs could be used if it was about raising labor standards and actually building productive capacity in the United States. The problem is that none of that is happening. What's actually happening is if they pay the tariffs, you're raising the prices all across the board for American consumers. So the very people who he says he's saving are actually being taxed higher and higher amounts for the goods and services that they need. And it makes everything less affordable because American producers are not going to lower their prices when the prices of foreign goods are being jacked up artificially by tariffs. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, parasites do what parasites do. They bleed you to death. It's whatever the market will bear. And that's the problem, is the capitalist system. It's not this tactic or that tactic. It's the capitalist market that is the problem. And the fact that we produce everything but don't control anything is the problem. It's not a market for needs. It's a market for profit. It's a market for speculation. And that capture of the economy for their economic interests is what's going to always leave us destitute. It's always going to leave us behind the 8 ball. It's always going to leave us falling further and further behind inflation. So, I mean, no one's saying that you can't use tariffs. You can never use tariffs, but just tariffing foreign goods with no economic plan whatsoever to create more jobs anywhere or to actually do anything to change the standard of living of American workers doesn't change anything. It just makes life harder because we end up paying all the bills always because we have no choice but to buy essential goods. And these goods are going to go through the roof under Trump.
They have.
Yeah, James. I mean, it can take literally years to build a factory for most anything. I mean, for example, microprocessors. And if you want to make them, you have to buy this machine from AMD because that they produce the best ones. And there's an 8-year wait to order them, and then it has to be shipped over in 3 planes, and it's got 100,000 parts. Also, since AMD is based in the Netherlands, there is a tariff on it because it's considered an imported machine, and the machine itself costs over $100 million. So by the time, once you get your machine, first of all, it's going to be like 2035. Second of all, you're going to be paying extra for it because you bought it when Trump's tariffs were in effect. But you can't just, the idea that you can just build a factory, you can't. It takes time. You have to plan this shit out. And you have to hire the workers, and and even so, it will be more expensive in the U.S. There are companies that make, for example, this. I was reading an article in the Times as jeans manufacturer. They have operations in LA, and they also have operations overseas, and I think Indonesia. And their LA factory produces about 50,000 pounds a year of denim, which is a fraction of what they produce overseas. And their LA stuff is more expensive by about a 2-to-1 factor to produce because it just costs you so much more, and there isn't the skill set here to produce that. And that's just fucking blue jeans. I mean, it's even cheaper for them to ship the cotton for the to make to turn into denim from the U.S. overseas and produce it there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that has to do with denim, about clothes manufacturing being a very labor-intensive job that's normally about seeking the lowest wages, the worst job conditions, the least benefits, and it always has been going back to slavery.
Yeah.
Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's sad that James's first point was on the money about, being concerned about taxes going up. Of course, Mamdani's shown that he's going to tax billionaires. So that's not accurate with respect to him, but our taxes and all our costs are going up. And he's really concerned about that. And he has a right to be, right? Our costs are going up. But then I actually confront him with facts and the fact that his and mine and all of our costs are going up because of Trump's tariffs. And immediately he's like, oh, that's okay, right? That's what you call not being honest or not really thinking through. He's bought into the justification of the rich and powerful on that. When someone actually wants to use billionaires' tax money, not ours, to actually make things more affordable for working people, he's up in arms about tax costs. When we actually say that your costs and mine are going up because of Trump's policies, he's like, oh, that's okay, right? It's the same thing with when people go, oh, we can't have free buses, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, the Staten Island ferry is free. And they're like, oh, well, that's good, right? This isn't honest arguing. It's not thinking things through. And it's buying into the lies that the billionaires, Elon Musk, and all the newspapers and everyone, because they run society, that they put into our heads. And right. And union people have to break with that, right? If we had James's mentality back when unions were formed, unions would have never come together and everyone been like, oh, I'm just on my own. Everyone else can go F themselves, right?
Or I'm just going to build my own business.
Right. Carnegie and Ford and Rockefeller say, I've already got it good already, working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I'm just going to do that. Right. So
the other thing is too, like we need to, it's very easy to get into your emotions. It's very easy to get stuck in your own anxiety and your own alarm about your conditions of life and how much they've fallen in a short period of time. And it's very easy to get sucked up into an emotional response that doesn't look at the world as it is, but is looking for easy solutions. It's looking for somebody to solve these problems right fucking now. And look, I'm a transit worker that's been assaulted 3 times on the job. And believe me when I tell you, if there were easy solutions for the problems that we face in terms of assault, if there were an easy way to solve that problem, I would be all for it. I would be all for it. Nobody is as motivated as any transit worker to see the crisis that we face actually be addressed. The problem is that when people come to you and say there are easy solutions and we just have to, have some daddy do it for us and fight for us, and that's going to change everything, it makes it avoids the real world that we live in. And it makes it seem like the solutions are not class solutions, that it's just about getting smart people to make the right decisions on our behalf. And when people give you those smug, self-satisfied answers, like they have all the answers just because they're rich, question where the ideas come from. It matters where the ideas come from. What class does this idea represent? We interrogate and nail to the cross Zohran Mamdani about everything he ever says and people put all sorts of nefarious meaning behind everything that he does all day long, 24/7. And we're going to interrogate whether he's for real about what he says. But yet Elon Musk does something on X and we take it as the gospel truth just because he's rich. And we have to interrogate our own consciousness, that how did we come to the point where somebody who we know is somebody who exploits workers all over the globe and who told Donald Trump, and Donald Trump bragged about Elon being willing to fire workers when they try to unionize and try to organize. And we take what he has to say as maybe he has a good idea. Don't you think that you should at least be suspicious of these ideas coming from outside of our class, from people who have benefited from your own exploitation? I just don't understand how you can take and swallow as whole cloth as a helpful idea. They're doing you a favor by pointing to solutions for us because they really care about you. But yet they openly talk about firing workers who try to unionize. Make that make sense. Why would we have a reflexive willingness to hear them out and hear what they have to say without, for 1 second, thinking about what class perspective does this idea come from? And maybe we should be somewhat skeptical about where these ideas are coming from and whether they have value or not. It's unbelievable how automatically, because someone is rich, we assume that they have all the answers. If they have all the answers, our life wouldn't be a fucking capitalist hellscape with people starving to death in the richest country in the history of the fucking world. Make that make sense. Where does capitalism work, by the way? They always talk about, oh, socialism doesn't work. It's been tried. In one fucking country, it's been tried, in the Soviet Union. It was tried for a little while, and it was attacked by 17 imperialist countries. Capitalism has been tried in every country on the fucking planet, and has been tried for centuries. And yet, it has forced mass immiseration on the overwhelming majority of the world's population, allows people to starve and die of diseases we learned to cure 100 fucking years ago. But capitalism is such a success, isn't it? It's really amazing, that, you can interrogate systems that are not in power, people that are not in power, but you can never interrogate and nail to the cross those who are actually responsible for your everyday suffering. Hilarious. I'm all for an honest discussion, but I'm not willing to engage in dishonest, rabbit holes with people who don't want to take seriously who is really the cause of our immiseration. Steph, we need to wrap up. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think we've gone far, and I think it's been an interesting discussion. I think back and forth. So. I think we should call it there. We're over an hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay, so we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We also want to apologize because you may have noticed that we have not been as active as we have been in the past with the Local 100 Fightback Coalition. And there are reasons for that. I've been assaulted twice in the space of 2 years. I've been dealing with PTSD and anxiety. I was out of work for 2 years. Seth recently had a family member pass away. There's a lot of, and we know we're all going through things. We're all struggling. But we plan to very much pick up the pace of our intervention politically, not just because it's our obligation as socialists and as trade unionists to engage in these discussions, but also because we know the precipitous decline in the level of discussion that goes on in the union if these ideas are not being raised, and if we're not challenging and interrogating our own class consciousness. Everybody's consciousness has to be fought for. It just doesn't happen. It happened, and what is the biggest guarantor of consciousness progressing and advancing is struggles, live struggles that we actively engage in. Whether we agree with everything that the movement stands for or not is really not the point. It's going through the experience with our class that we begin to test our own consciousness, test out strategies that work, strategies that don't work, hold leaders accountable, and even replace those leaders if necessary in the course of that struggle. And we know that we haven't been very active in doing that, and we plan to very much do so in the future. And we look forward to doing that with you. And we hope that you'll join us in these discussions. We want to have a back and forth discussion. And even when we don't agree, and even when we don't agree very vociferously, it doesn't mean there's any hostility towards the individual. We need to be ruthless towards systems and kind to people. Michael Brooks once said that. He's a very famous socialist in this country. And I think that, you know, we got to get the balance right in terms of doing that. And if I was harsh with people, people's comments, I understand that that may not be the most productive way to have those discussions. But at the same time, I don't want to censor pushback that definitely needs to happen. So if anybody wants to speak before we wrap, let me know. We good?
No, let's just go. That's
okay.
it.
Have a good night, everybody, and we'll look
Good
forward
night.
to seeing you real soon. Thank you.
Night.